Welcome, I'm Yan Kugel and this is the fourth and the last part of the GMP History Saga, where you finally get to meet our hero. If you haven't seen the first 3 episodes yet, visit the comment sections for the links. In the last episode we talked about the FDA's Medical American Chamber of Horrors exhibition, which unfortunately didn't lead to any actions from the government. And because there were no obligations to test drugs for safety back in 1937, the pharmaceutical company S.E. Masangil Company killed 107 people by releasing a literal poison to the market, believing the drug was useful against infections. The event leads to the formation of new laws making companies test drugs for safety before marketing them. But it didn't solve manufacturing problems like cross-contamination. And in 1941 a company released an antimicrobial drug contaminated with epilepsy drugs, killing hundreds of people. The catastrophe led FDA to revise manufacturing and quality control requirements. But it alone didn't cut it as well. It took another world-scale event to bring a real change that finally gives us GMP. It all started in 1956 in Europe, when a drug named Thalidomide came to market. The company Chemie marketed it as a mild sleeping pill. It also reduced morning sickness, so it became popular with pregnant women. Unfortunately, the preclinical trials were lacking at the time, and the scientists didn't test the drug on pregnant animals. Only years later, in 1962, doctors could connect the drug to about 10,000 cases of congenital disabilities, where babies were born with malformed limbs. This event caused massive concern in the USA, which finally led to the formation of good manufacturing practices for finished pharmaceuticals in 1963. It has become a law and found its way to the American Code of Federal Regulations under Section 21, Parts 210 and 211. Finally, FDA could regulate clinical trials and require drugs to be tested in animals before people. It also put investigators responsible for supervising medications under study. Manufacturers couldn't bring a product to the market anymore without proof of safety and efficacy, and they were required to report unexpected adverse effects. The regulations also contained the minimum conditions for facilities, controls to be used during manufacturing, processing, packaging, or holding of a drug. Drugs have to meet the requirements of the Act as to safety and quality. They must have the identity, strength, and purity characteristics that meet approved specifications. In 1969, the World Health Organization accepted the American GMP as an integral part of its certification scheme on the quality of pharmaceutical products. Since then, more than 100 countries have incorporated the WHO GMP provisions into their national medicinal laws. And many more countries have adopted its regulations and approach in defining their local GMP requirements. Later, in 1978, GMP for drugs was substantially revised and expanded to medical devices as well with 21 CFR 820. The regulations govern the methods used in the facilities as well as the controls used for the design, manufacture, packaging, labeling, storage, installation and servicing of all finished medical devices intended for human use. Not much later, in 1979, the American government finalized the good laboratory practice to regulate non-clinical laboratory studies for future potentially registered drugs. The journey of the GMP doesn't end here. Since its formation, there were many setbacks and problems, but it always keeps developing. And that's why we have the term CGMP, current GMP. It means that you have to keep learning and continuously improve the quality systems in the company. Nowadays, GMP is a common practice worldwide, and people rarely get hurt from harmful drugs. That's why you said no to my question at the beginning. Not that long ago, your answer would probably be different. It took about 80 years of trial and error and many catastrophes to create GMP. But it is a drop in the sea in comparison to human history. For tens of thousands of years, the life expectancy of people in the world was about 30 years old. But in the last 120 years, it more than doubled itself. Once an older person with a cane was a rare sight, and GMP plays a crucial role in it. Of course it has to do with science, but because of GLP and GMP, only 1 of 10,000 molecules would become a drug. It makes companies work harder and better to achieve potent and safe drugs. It also pushes companies to develop computer software that would simulate in hours or minutes what would have otherwise taken years in the lab. Therefore, the future looks bright and healthy for the humankind, thanks to GMP, which will always keep progressing and improving. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, share it with someone who might also find it interesting. Stay compliant and see you in the next segment.